So in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to do advanced chess calculation. So if you guys are anything like me, for a long time you guys will have been doing tactics trainers like chess.com, Lee chess puzzles. And an example is right here in front of you. This puzzle is actually quite low rated, only 1741. So we should be able to solve it quickly. Usually you want to just look for forcing moves first, like checks and captures, calculate them very quickly, and you'll get a straightforward line to the answer. So something like rook takes knight, or maybe I'm thinking knight check, something like that will probably be the answer, right? And knight check looks very promising because then I know the rook can come all the way back here, king will probably come here, and then this knight can probably check there or something, right? So let's do that. Let's calculate it now. Knight check, king cannot come onto this line because of the rook. So king g8. And then rook can check on e8 because the knight is pinned to the king by this rook. Okay, so the rook will come there and check, which means the king has to go there. Now the knight cannot check from here because there's this rook covering that square. So knight will probably go to f8 to check, then the king has to come back to one of these two squares. Okay, now I see the answer, right? And then the knight will come here, that's a discovered check. King will come back to h7, and then rook h8 will be checkmate, okay? So, okay, let's do it. Here, here, check. All right, and then the answer is finished because the king will go here, and then the rook will checkmate from the back on h8, and the knight is protected by the rook. Okay, now this, if you're a very low level player, then you're like, okay, shit, this is impressive, this is amazing, right? But this is actually a very simple puzzle because there's only one straightforward line all the way through. There isn't a morass of variations to calculate. Okay, so let's go back here. We actually calculated 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 moves after the king moves, right? 5 moves, entire moves we calculated deeply. And of course, that seems impressive. Now, each half move, we call it a ply. Okay, so it's not 10 moves, it's 5, and then each like half move, like a knight check, would be a 1 ply. Okay. Anyways, so the lesson I want to teach today is, even with these tactics trainers, I got to like 2700 on chess.com tactics trainer, I think like 2740 or something. And I did a ton of it, right? And it never actually helped me with messy positions over the board. Like, these puzzles are awesome if you just want to if you want to train your pattern recognition, to be able to spot tactics easily, calculate little variations like these. But then you got to go to the next level where you train with a book like, I'll show you this guy. So Agard's calculation book. And this is like meant to take you to like grandmaster level or something, right? So these are hard puzzles. So we're going to look at these today. So I've set one up on Lee Chess today. And so let's start looking at this very quickly here. If you just calculate the forcing moves, then you've got, of course, pawn takes here. You've got knight check, bishop check. And one of these will likely be the answer because this puzzle is drawn from the combinations chapter of this book, which means we will be looking at these straightforward forcing moves. Now, when I start solving the puzzle, my first step with these harder puzzles is always to check the material balance. So I know what we're fighting for, right? Like, maybe winning a piece will be enough. If we're down a piece, then maybe it won't be enough and we need to look for checkmates. Sometimes you need to look for a draw, like a perpetual check. So let's count the material here. I'll just match up the pieces very quickly. I find this the easiest way to do this. So I'll look, 2 rooks, we've got 2 rooks. Whoops, sorry, okay. So we know that's equal. We know that both of us have a queen. Then I'll count the minor pieces. We've got 2 minor pieces here, 2 minor pieces here, so we're equal in that. Then I'll quickly match up the pawns. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns. Okay, so we're down a pawn in this position, which is pretty equal for a puzzle, right? So, okay, so that means even winning material will be enough in this puzzle, okay? Then I look at my opponent's threats, because if my opponent has a very severe threat, a serious threat that he can finish me off in one move, then I can't make quiet moves in my solution, okay? Then all my moves need to be forcing. So let's look at this quickly. Does black have a threat? Yes, knight takes queen is a threat. Apart from this, I can't really see much, except maybe knight check could be a threat because then the rook comes onto this line after the pawn is gone. So I gotta look for these things in my solution, okay? Alright, so now, if I was just looking at this puzzle just like that, without any aids, just looking at it with my eyes, then I will start calculating. Okay, so let's do that very quickly because Okay, so let's say pawn takes, and I won't draw arrows because that's kind of an aid, okay? And it'll defeat the purpose of what I'm trying to teach here. So pawn takes pawn, king takes, then I'm looking at bishop discovered check probably somewhere, okay? After the king ends up on h7, so maybe like bishop here or f5 or something, then king has to come back to g7, let's say. Uh, no, actually, here I already see something. Like if bishop f5 check, king comes. Okay, I'm drawing arrows. All right, I'll screw it. I'll draw arrows to help out you guys with watching this video. Because I'm thinking pawn here, king takes, then bishop check, discovery, king comes back. Let's say he goes there, then rook check, supported by the bishop, and then the king would have to go back there, and then knight there is checkmate. Okay. Now, of course, this is the straightforward line, but there will be deviations where black can differ, right? So after bishop check, for example, the king doesn't have to go to g7 and allow this check. He can go king there after bishop f5, and then maybe okay, but then again knight e7, and then king back to g7, and then rook there is checkmate. Although he can try after knight e7, he can try to come here, and then after rook check, bishop still here, he can go here, and then we don't really have anything. Okay, now the lesson I want to teach here is that what differentiates a beginner from a grandmaster is that the beginner will look at the same lines over and over again, whereas a grandmaster will chop through the variations efficiently. Okay, so when I look at anywhere where the straight line branches into two variations, the beginner will get stumped and then they'll keep flipping back and forth. So let's give an example. After pawn takes, king takes, bishop here, king back, and then knight here, and then king here, rook there, king here. Now at this point, I'm just kind of stuck because it's like, shit, what did I do wrong? I don't have a finish anymore. Okay, the king is safely, securely sitting there, and I have no more checks except maybe with the bishop. These are kind of stupid looking checks, okay? Although this check could be doing something, but then the king runs out here, right? And this is where my lesson that I want to teach for this video comes in. So depression, okay, if you think about it, chess is kind of like a microcosm for life. So when we're calculating these puzzles, you're going to feel kind of the same emotions and experiences as you would in a real life problem. At least that's my theory, okay? So depression actually evolved evolutionarily, probably, to show us roads that we should not go down because there's hopelessness there, okay? So like you don't want to go fight 10 lions in the jungle or something because that's going to lead to your death. It's a hopeless avenue. You don't want to pursue that. So when you see 10 lions in front of you, you should feel a little bit dejected. You should feel a little bit depressed so that you look for alternative ways. Now, when you're approaching a problem or a puzzle, that can kind of hinder you because in a puzzle like this, you should fight through, right? You need to actually keep calculating without just abandoning the problem, okay? So you need a way to get past the depression. And this is where writing becomes very useful to teach you a skill which I'm going to call it urgent proactivity. Okay, this is kind of my own term. Nobody's ever used it before. Never heard this concept being taught before, so I'm going to just invent it. So what writing the puzzle does is it teaches you to just keep chopping through variations efficiently without that dejection, without that despair, without that depression. And I'll teach you guys how to do it, okay? So let's start with the first move here. One, I hope you guys can see the text on the screen. Hopefully it's not too small. We're going to look at G6, X, H7. And of course this G would be small, but it's auto-correcting, which is annoying, but okay. That's the first ply, and now we put up the second ply, which is black's response, which would be, let's say, king x h7. Now the thing is, the king doesn't actually need to take that pawn. He can also go to h8. And again, if you're a novice calculator, you're going to feel a little bit of depression. It's like, shit, I've got 2 lines to calculate. So this, you see how this is already becoming a lot different from the first puzzle we solved here, which only had 1 line, a straightforward line. There's no depression because every move you're getting like a dopamine hit, like shit, like this is the answer, boom, 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 all the way till the end. Here, it's very easy to get stressed because now your opponent has like 2 or 3 different options each move, and you're like, shit, now I got to calculate everything or what, So okay, let's start with king takes h7. And of course, writing also helps you so that you're not coming back to the same move over and over and over again to reevaluate it, because you've got the moves there in front of you written down, and then you just attach an evaluation at the end. Okay. Now, some of you might ask, like, why are we doing this when in a real game you're not allowed to write moves? Okay, like when you play in a tournament, once you write down a move on your paper, it's final. You got to play that move. Okay. The reason is there's steps. Let me just write them down. Steps to competence. Okay. The first one is unconscious incompetence. Some of you guys might have heard this already. Then there's conscious incompetence, and then there's conscious competence, and then there's unconscious competence. Okay. Whenever you train these skills in chess, and I can find various examples. So this is one example where you have to go through this process to get to this point where you can just look at a puzzle and practice all these right skills without overthinking it. Okay. So once I've done enough writing the solutions, eventually I'll get to the point where I'm starting to get to this point. I'm noticing it in myself where I'm getting more efficient with my calculations. I no longer need to write as much. Okay. But to get to this unconscious competence, you got to go through this conscious competence phase first, where you have to bring your attention to fixing that skill. Okay, this is why we're writing. We're doing it consciously. We're consciously training our thought process to be more efficient so that then we can dispense with the writing and just do it automatically. Okay, so I'll just leave that down here somewhere. You know, fuck, I'll delete it. Okay. So let's go through this rest of this. Okay, we got king takes h7, then we had bishop f5 check, and the king went to g8, let's say. Okay, then we had knight e7 check. Okay, and then the king went to. It can go to g7 or f7. Okay, so we'll look at g7 first because it's the more straightforward line. f7 gives black more resources. Okay, then we had rook h7 check, and then king. That's checkmate, is it? No, you know what? Actually, I might have even screwed up this calculation because the king can actually go to f6, so it's not checkmate. But good, we'll get to this. Okay, so once we've written down the first variation, I'm gonna write an evaluation here. So after rook h7, the best I can, in my mind, visualizing it, I can see that the king can still go to f6. If I get anything wrong, guys, I'm sorry. So king f6, and then I'll be like, okay, shit, is there a finish there? I see queen h6 there, queen h6 check, and that looks like a checkmate, honestly. So yeah, okay. So I'm gonna put an evaluation there. Okay, I'm gonna put this hashtag, which means checkmate. Good. Now what I'm gonna do is, of course, I'd be doing this on a real paper, not a text editor. So I just put my variation on the side there somewhere, or I draw like an arrow. I'll give you guys an example. Like, there's one I did before. It's a mess. Like, you guys don't have to be neat, right? So this the first was like, this is one puzzle from this same book, and I'm drawing arrows, as you guys can see, like arrows. Like, it's just a freaking mess, but I'll try and keep it neat here. Okay, so let's go to the second line. Like, anywhere where there's a variation, I'll restart it. So where was the variation? After rook h, after knight e7 check. Okay, so let's put that down. So number 3, on move 3, the king doesn't have to go to g7. It can also go to f7. Okay, so that's a new variation. And then this gets more challenging. So I'll put it on the board. Actually, you know, I'll even help you guys by moving the pieces to make this video easier to follow. So this is the line I'm looking at. There's a discovered check here, okay? And then the king went here, g7. Of course, king going here is even a bit more challenging because it doesn't give us a straightforward rook check. Then we have to start with knight check. So I'll put that variation on my notepad as well, but let's start with this one, g7. It's going to be a long video. Is this checkmate actually? Nah, what's going on here? Oh, then he goes here, and then this is checkmate. Did I capture that line? No, I didn't. Okay, I should have written that down. I captured it earlier, but I didn't write it down. So, where did I go? Bishop f5. Oh, because I looked at king g8 first. I should have looked at g7. Okay, let's put that. See, this is tough because I want to be able to write on the side. So I'll just put it here. Oops. It's going to be a mess. Okay. How do I... Jeez. Okay, this is annoying. I'll just put it way down here. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so after king takes bishop f, instead of going to g8, we'll put king g7, or yeah, king g7. This is an easier line to calculate. King g7. Wow, this is so messed up. Honestly, this is really messing with me. Shit, I don't even know how to do this. I hate this editor. Okay, let's put a 1. Hopefully it's okay. There we go. Sorry guys, I thought this would be more efficient. Okay, king g7. Then we had rook h7 check. Gosh, and then king g8. And then knight e7 was checkmate. Okay, so now that we've kind of evaluated this whole line, we're not going to come back to it. We know this is the evaluation. Okay, this stops us from coming over the same line, looping back over and over it. Okay, so that's this line. Now the line I'm looking at next is king g8 instead of g7. This is a slightly more challenging line where we don't have rook check anymore. We have to start with knight check, and that's where I had this line here. Okay, that's what we're looking at now. This is already finished. This is in our okay, so we're looking at this line, and we already calculated this line with king g8, where king g8 we had knight e7 here, this, and we already looked at this line. That's oh, but see, now I missed something in my calculation. You guys are seeing this real time. Like, this is how players mess up. This is how I mess up. So the queen is actually pinned, so I don't have queen h6. Crazy, eh? And I thought here I wrote queen h6 is checkmate. Okay. Now actually I should actually leave this here because it's an instructive lesson where you can go wrong with your calculations. And Dan Heisman calls this a quiescence error. I won't even go into that. Okay. It's kind of like when you get deeper into your calculations, you think pieces have moved already or they can do stuff that they can't. And that's kind of the risk with running long calculations. You make a lot more of these quiescent errors. Okay, anyways. So actually, I don't have queen h6 here. So re-looking at this line, there is knight check here. Does that do anything? That's checkmate, isn't it? Okay, so we'll put that. We got lucky there. Knight d5 is checkmate in this line. It's going to be a long video, man. Okay. Did not anticipate this. Okay, so back here, holy crap, okay, knight f7, what are we looking at now? Yeah, okay, on move 3, now I want to look at this line, king f7 instead of g7. This line we already looked at, rook h7 finishes the deal. Now we're looking at king f7 instead. Okay, so let's look at this. What would we do here? The first move I think of is like, okay, rook h7, let's try that. Okay, rook h7 check. And of course, I would want this to be up there somewhere on the side, but it's this freaking editor's messing with me. I'm so sorry, guys. Let's put that down there somewhere. Rook h7. And then the king can go to f6 or to e8. Okay. Now, f6, we kind of transpose. We know that knight d5 is checkmate. That's looking at this, this line. It transposes into this one, so we won't cover that. We'll just look at king e8. Okay. So let's put that down here. Move 4. Oh, sorry. This should be move 4 here. My bad. You guys are gonna hate me for being so clumsy here. Okay. King e8. Move 5. Okay. Now we look at other stuff, and I'm thinking we've got bishop check as a forcing move. There's also knight back so that this rook can come to e7, which would be checkmate. So there's stuff like this, right? And black is gonna trade off our queen. So I'm not sure how to approach this yet. So this is actually a perfect example. This is where I would face a real-time depression over the board where it's like, shit, I don't want to calculate knight c6 because there's a million things that black can do. It's a quiet move. I don't want to calculate this. And this is where writing helps you because no matter how much you don't want to do it, you can easily just write down the next move. So I'm just going to put it, fuck it, knight c6. Let's see what happens after knight c6. And then we just put in a move for black. Okay, so let's say he's going to do queen takes queen. Okay, queen takes queen. And then I'll take it probably with my rook. Rook takes queen. And then he's going to do knight takes queen. Knight takes rook, sorry. So what I'm looking at here is knight c6. Takes, knight takes. And then here I have a checkmate. So 7, rook e7, mate. Okay. This is checkmate. So then I think, okay, where could have black deviated to not allow this checkmate? Well, after I take back the queen, after rook takes So back here, well, I'll leave that actually. Let's see. Just let me put in a variation here. So on move 6, let's look at move 6. The knight didn't have to take the rook. He can just do something else to stop the checkmate. So let's say he goes, I don't know, rook g8 or something to clear some room. There's also maybe rook f7, but then he's dropping a lot of material. Okay, I've got knight takes rook, I've got bishop g6, so I'm not going to look at that. Let's look at rook g8. And here, what can white do to keep the advantage? Well, let's see here. Honestly, even like rook here, king there, and then like rook here, I would just stop calculating there because in a real game, I know this is just a crushing position for white. I mean, the rook is being hit, and when the rook runs somewhere, I've got a nice discovery with my bishop. So here, I would just put an evaluation. There's no point in. I know this is not probably not the line in the answer. There's probably a quicker finish, but it's enough for me to see that there is a win in this line somewhere. So I'm going to tag an evaluation there. So usually I would do something like this, that plus over or minus or something. These are chess informant evaluations. Like when you buy the old chess informant magazines, they would put plus minus signs, equal signs, whatever to show who has the advantage in that position. Okay, and like a triangle in that book would mean with the idea of. An arrow would mean with initiative. So you can use these little symbols. I recommend learning them and using them when you're writing down your calculations. Okay, so we'll just put that here. Rook g8. Rook g8 and then move 7. Rook f2 plus minus. So that just tells me that white is winning in this line, okay? So, okay. Now, it's very hard for me to follow my own stupid writing here because this text editor is not letting me be organized. I have to keep going down, like in descending order. It's stupid. So, forgive me if I'm missing a lot of variations because I can't even follow this text editor, and I feel sorry for you guys. But I'll keep going here. Back here somewhere. So we calculated a win in this line. Is there any other deviation black can do? Where was the start? Okay, so we looked at, okay, let's look at the major deviation here. The king does not even have to take the pawn. The king can go to f7, it can go to g7, or it can go to h8. So let's quickly look at those lines. We'll forget about this stupid line. This text editor is pissing me off. Let's draw a line here. And let's look at the other crucial deviations. Let's look at one that would probably be easy. Start with the easy ones first, like king f7 on move. This is after g takes f6. Okay, so on move 1, black can deviate with king f7 instead. So let's see what white might try there. Okay, then I just think, okay, let's put the rook here and pin the queen to the king. The problem is the knight can take our queen, so it's not clear that. Well, then we take the queen and then we win the knight too, so that should be winning. Okay, so let me write that. Let me put that on the board for you guys. Let's say king f7. Here, knight takes queen, rook takes queen, and then we're winning the knight next move. So I'm going to tag an evaluation to this. Rook f, let's say rook df1. And then knight takes queen, and then rook takes queen with check. And then here I would put a triangle. I would actually draw a triangle on my paper, which says with the idea. That means with the idea of taking queen next move. Taking knight next move. Okay, and then I would put an evaluation, maybe with like plus minus. That tells me white is winning in this line. Good. So we've covered king f7. We no longer need to look at that. And you see, if I was doing this in my mind, I would be jumping everywhere, coming back to the same line a million times. But with the writing, your thought process becomes so efficient. You only need to look at each variation once, put an evaluation there, then you look at the next variation. Okay, and throughout this whole process, I've experienced almost no stress. Okay, when I'm looking at a puzzle or with the book, not writing stuff, I get so stressed out. It's like, fuck, I don't want to calculate this. What if he goes here? What if he goes there? He has a million options. What am I supposed to do, right? But when you're writing, you just chop through the variations. Zero stress, okay? And it feels good, this kind of mastery, okay? Anyway, so back here, king f7 is not the only deviation. Let's look at the next deviation here. This is all after g takes h7. King g7 is another one, but it looks straightforward. Like we have the rook check here, maybe. So I'll come back to that next. I feel like going through king h8 first because this seems to be the one where if I have nothing, then my move did not work. The king is safe on h8. He's using my own pawn as a shield. So this seems like a crucial deviation, which I need to look at. Otherwise, I'm going to dismiss the whole line, right? It's a deal breaker. Okay, so let's look at that. Now, on move 1, king h8. What the hell do we do now? So the idea that pops into my mind is knight here with the idea of there. Or, yeah, this is tough. Like, it almost seems like we have nothing here. Okay, so let's say knight there, queen takes queen, rook takes, knight takes, and then I can go here, king here, and then I mean if I take the rook, then we're kind of equal in material. But then at the end I might no. So this whole line seems to not be working. But let me tag an evaluation. Let me be efficient here. So knight e7, and again, knight e7 is a move that would cause me a lot of stress because it's such a quiet move with like a million things it looks like black can do. Like he can even do this, he can take my queen. So this is where I would, in real time, I would face a little bit of depression on over the board, where my brain is telling me, don't go down this avenue, it seems hopeless, just choose another problem, just choose another path. But when you're solving a problem, you can't just ditch the problem. So you have to fight through the depression with what I call urgent proactivity. You keep doing little tasks. And I hope you guys can apply this to other areas of your life because often when you're feeling depressed in life, what you need is not so much to, instead of getting stressed out, it helps you just take little steps forward that you know will lead to the right thing. But it's really hard to take those small steps forward because your brain has been evolutionarily designed to not take those steps forward. If you're seeing 10 lions, don't try and solve the problem incrementally, just run away. Just choose another problem, right? But you can't do that in life. Uh, you gotta so just do a chore, do a little thing that will help you progress a little bit forward. In this case, we're seeing it with writing. The act of writing and calculating little one plies forward in the puzzle is a way through the depression. Okay, not letting it rule your thinking. Okay, too much talking. 97. Let's put that down. Then let's calculate like just any line. It doesn't even have to be a good line. Whenever you calculate a forcing line, it tells you how the position is held together. So there's utility in calculating it. Queen takes queen. Okay, number 3, rook takes queen, and then knight takes rook. And here I was thinking knight g6. Put that down. Knight g6. And I bet some of you smart people will be like, okay, this whole line is fucked. Why are you calculating this stupid line? Go look for another line. But let me be thorough, okay? And this is something I actually have to work on, my own intuition in these calculating these positions, because I often look at the wrong line first. But regardless, at least my calculation is getting good. So knight g6, and then of course king g7, or actually there's king takes h7. So somewhere in here, I'm like, fuck this line is not working. But okay, whatever. Let's do king takes h7. And then move 5, we got knight takes f8, the rook. Rook takes f8. f8. Ah, okay, but then I can take the knight. Alright, interesting. 6, king takes knight. Okay, then here I would put an evaluation, okay? So, of course, I know that I did not solve the puzzle. At the end of this, we're down a pawn, okay? So I'm going to be like, okay, it's roughly equal, or maybe even black is a little bit better. Okay, so this is the evaluation I'm going to put here. That just means the plus on this side of the equal sign means black is a little bit better, okay? And if I wanted to denote a bigger advantage to black, then I would put minus and then plus like this. Or the plus would be under the minus, whatever. This text editor won't let me do half the shit, but that's enough to tell me this is not the solution. Now let me just go back and see, is there anywhere I could have improved on this line? Legit, like knight e7 is the only thing I saw in this position. After this, the king just seems safe. So this is where I'm gonna abandon my whole line. Okay. So let's now that means my first move is fucked. Okay, this she takes h7 doesn't work, okay? But do you see how like by going through this process, and I could have done this a lot quicker if I wasn't trying to teach the video, we eliminated one move entirely. We're not gonna come back to this, okay? Maybe eventually we'll come back to it if we really get stuck and I'm suspecting I missed something, but most likely not, okay? So let's look at another candidate move. candidate moves are in any position. These kind of moves kind of pop up to you. Like just looking at this position, I know that knight e7 is a good move. Probably maybe bishop here. Queen takes queen could be a candidate move if I wanted to trade queens, but there's no point here really, knowing that I need to find one solution in the puzzle. So these candidate moves just pop out at you kind of, and you can also train your ability to think of these candidate moves consciously. That's what the first chapter of this book does. It's on candidate moves, finding them. Whatever. Okay. So let's try another candidate move here. We tried g takes h7. We're not going to look at that again. Let's try knight e7. Okay, move one, knight e7. Now, it would help me to look at the logic of the position more carefully to see which candidate move has a bigger chance of panning out, but I'm not going to do that right now. It's better I just want to show how to calculate their lines. Knight e7. And then what black has two choices, king h8 or king g7. Okay, let's look at one of these first. So let's look at king h8 first. Okay. So king h8. And now my candidate moves that pop up into my head are g7. Something like g takes h7 just seems like too much of a quiet move. Although, actually this transposes. So because we calculated that first line, we don't need to look at g takes h7, because then we're in the same line that we just calculated, this line up here. So I only need to look at g7. So let's look at that g7 check. Okay, then king takes g7. And now do I have anything? So maybe there's like rook here. Rook g1 check. And then let's say king goes. Now the king can run. But then rook here, rook f1 should be winning. Or no. Yeah, I don't, because what will happen is he'll take my queen, I take his queen, he takes my knight, I take his knight. And at the end, we're kind of just equalish. So let me put that down here actually. Rook g1, king f7. Then I had rook f1, and then king take, how did that go? Rook f1. No, rook f1, he took my queen, knight takes queen. And then I had rook takes queen. Then I had king takes knight, and then I had rook takes knight. And then here I'll put an evaluation. It's like black is a little bit better. It's this line that I'm looking at here. Okay. And black is a little bit better, I'd say, because he's up a pawn still, or 2 pawns even. So you know what, fuck it, let's change this. Black is quite a bit better. Okay, so this line doesn't work. So then I need to see where should I have deviated. So g7 seems to not be working because of this move right here. And I can't see a better way to deal with this. I mean, of course, there are crazy candidate moves like this, allowing my rooks to penetrate, but it seems like it won't be enough because my queen is still pinned here. Okay. Plus, for the sake of this video, I don't want to be writing down extra stuff if I don't feel like I don't have to. But okay, let's abandon this line. This line is not working with knight check. Okay, so I'm gonna, for now, that means knight e7 is out and g takes h7 is out. Okay, so I've eliminated 2 candidate moves. Let's try another one. Bishop e6. Fuck, this is a long video. You guys are gonna, whatever. Okay. Bishop e6 check. All right, then he's got king 8 g7. Actually, bishop e6 makes sense because we're opening this rook, right? There can be some stuff here. So let's try a move like king. Which one should we look at? First of all, let's look at the easier one. King h8 is instant mate. King h8. Then rook takes h7 is checkmate. Right? This is complete checkmate. The bishop's doing this thing here. Cool. So then we only need to look at g7. So on move 1, he could have done king g7 instead. Then we do rook, probably do rook takes h7, check. And then he's going to have to do king takes g6. Takes g6, and now I'm in trouble because I don't know what to do next. But now I'm thinking rook h1 or something. And then even if we end up, no, then I'm dropping my queen. What am I talking about? Whoops. Okay, but there's something interesting here. I'm thinking rook g1 and we distract the queen so that we can come in with this queen with checkmate. Okay, and if he takes my rook, oh shit, this is not working out. I mean, is there just perpetual check? No, I don't think so. So this is tough. Okay, there is this here, but then, okay, and then rook here. So I think okay, but this is tough because there's still no checkmate here. I know we got rid of the pin, but now there's still no way to deliver the checkmate. Nope, this is not working either. Ah, shit. So what do we do after this? There is knight here. Takes, and then none of this is really working. Okay, so I'm like completely stumped here. I mean, there is rook g7 too, with the idea of nothing's working here. Ugh, 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 ugh. Why was this bad? Because he takes here? Jesus. Okay, so is this line flawed too, or what? Okay, so in calculating this line, I actually came up with a new idea, and that is if I can sack one of these rooks back here and make the queen take, then I'm out of this pin, and I want to be able to use my queen, okay? And I'm also thinking once I move my knight out, I've actually got... So I'm getting new ideas when I calculate these lines. This is why I said it's always useful to calculate forcing lines because they tell you how the position is held together. I've got like 2 or 3 new ideas that I can actually come back and apply to my older lines back here. I've got my idea is I just realized once the knight moves, the queen can access the square. And I also realized I can break the queen to be able to activate my queen by sacking one of the rooks here with check. Even if I have to sack it and then my queen is available to do a checkmating thing, okay? Now actually, I've got like no idea how to solve this. I probably fucked something up. The line I fucked up recently was like here, here, and I didn't know what to do. Let me just write that down quickly though. Yeah, I think I did write it down. After king g7, I had no idea what to do. Although maybe I'm looking for too much and maybe even this is fine. Like if I take there, no, but then I'm losing my queen. There's no way in hell this is fine. Okay. So I'm going to end solving the puzzle here. I'm going to look at the solution. I'm going to cheat because this video has been going long enough and I've kind of hit a block where I'd have to re-examine some stuff on my own. Okay. So let's look at the answer. Let's use the engine here. And it'll likely be the case that we actually looked at a lot of the lines within the solution even. Okay, it says the first move way at the start is, holy shit, the answer is the last line we were looking at. So I gave up on the line too soon. We were actually on the right track. We correctly evaluated that this checkmates. We got this line on the paper here. This is the line, bishop e6, king h8, rook h7, checkmate. And where I got stumped was with king g7. And we did get the second move, rook takes h7. We were just looking at this line. And then king takes g6. Okay, and I actually wish I hadn't stopped so soon. I should have kept going because we actually looked at these moves. Knight e7. I actually looked at this line just now. King takes here. Okay. King takes. Okay, knight e7. Knight e7 check, and then king takes h7 rook. And here, I just looked at this and I thought, what the hell? We're kind of repeating the position. So what's the point? Okay, so I kind of abandoned this. And I didn't know how else to follow up here. I think I didn't look at anything else. But apparently bishop f5 here wins. Now this is another move that I did not look at because my depression in my mind kicked in too soon. So it told me that, look, rook takes bishop is just really going to be a messy position. And I don't want to calculate it, so my mind was like, fuck it, don't even look at it, okay? But you got to fight that depression in your mind, that tendency to give up on things that just look hopeless. And you got to build that urgent proactivity. That's the concept I want to emphasize here. Keep calculating through stuff, even if your mind just like wants to shut it down. Okay. So rook takes f5. Let's see how this works. I think the idea is we're just winning an exchange, maybe. So let's see. Okay, now we're gonna check, and I think the idea is to come here with check with a knight, pick it up with check. Like if you just go to g7, then we pick it up with check, and throughout that whole sequence, we won an exchange, and now we're threatening to win the queen because the rook is gone from the protection of the queen. Amazing, okay? But again, my depression kicks in because it's like, okay, what if he doesn't go to g7? But the thing is, he has to go to g7 because the knight is controlling these squares. Amazing, okay? So there's actually no way out. Like this is such a counterintuitive answer. Like you give up the bishop, you allow him to take with all the shit hanging, and then you just do a check like this. Here, boom, this is amazing. The next move, we're gonna pick up the queen. Unless he sacks his queen, right? This is also a line we have to calculate, because if we just pick it up, he takes here, he's still out material. You'll see with the engine up here, black is winning, right? So we can't take the queen back, we probably have to do something like this, yeah. And then take the queen next move. Alright guys, so I know I didn't get the answer, but actually we covered a lot of ground. Like we actually came really close to the answer. We eliminated this g takes h7 line completely. We know it's garbage. We completely eliminated the knight e7 check first line, and in the bishop e6 line, we actually came pretty damn close to the answer. We eliminated that line, and just in this line, I got stumped after king g7 because it required a very counterintuitive candidate move, which I dismissed too fast. I didn't even look at it really. The candidate move was after king g7. What was the answer again? Knight e7, and then bishop f5. Okay, so that's the calculation wasn't bad. It was kind of like I didn't quite grasp the logic at the end of the position, and I didn't identify the right candidate move. But we came pretty damn close, okay? And you realize how through this whole process, I haven't been very stressed. If I was doing it without writing, I would be sitting there like this. My head would be getting hot. I'd be like, shit, what do I do? What do I do? I'd be running over the same lines in my mind 1,000 times. But because we wrote everything down, we attached clear evaluations to each line. It's a stress-free exercise, okay? And this is how I think grandmasters feel when they're calculating over the board. They can just sit there, chop through lines efficiently without getting stressed, okay? So yeah, thank you for this video, guys. I hope this is a difference where let's do one more puzzle like this, the easy puzzle, and you'll see the difference, how easy it is to, here all I have to do is calculate a few forcing lines, and I'll get the answer like there. Rook check. Okay, maybe this is a hard one after all. What I'm looking at is here, queen takes, and then bishop here should be able to win the rook. Let's try that. Nope, it's wrong. Okay. Getting too overconfident, guys. What was the answer there then? Shit. Why doesn't this work though? Takes there and then bishop there. Why does that not work? Because queen takes bishop, rook takes, and then rook b1 is checkmate actually. Damn it. Okay, so what is the answer? Oof, oof, oof. Wow, this is actually a hard one. This defeats the point of me doing this puzzle. I wanted an easy one. What's the answer, people? Why am I not getting this? Is it a perpetual check one because we're losing? Because we can just check back and forth here. Let's try that. Nope, that's wrong too. What in the world? You got to be kidding me. Okay, the knight is hanging too. Okay, I'm gonna give up this puzzle because the point is not to sit here and try and what? Rook takes knight? Why? What the hell? What is up with this puzzle? How is it so hard? It's only a 1700, 1800 rated puzzle. How is it so hard? Oh, and I come here or here to threaten checkmate. Holy crap! And then we take. Okay, no, the system unfairly saddles me with a really hard problem. That is like a 2300 rated puzzle or something. I don't know why it's rated 7. Jesus. The idea is back here, we're threatening checkmate and we're threatening the bishop. But that is, holy crap, that was a hard one. Let me do one more puzzle to demonstrate my point here. How these tactics trainers you can just solve with brute force, just looking at forcing moves, and they're straightforward lines. Okay, so here, first instinct is just like knight there. And then he'll likely take my rook. And then I'll take his rook with check, he takes back, and then I take with this one, right? So that's a very straightforward line. This like not complicated at all. Take this one first, and then take with this one, and we're out material. But you see how there was only one branch, only one variation to calculate in there, whereas in our puzzle there's like a million different branches. So you have to be very efficient in your thinking. And just doing these tactics trainers, yes, they can take you to about 2200, 2300 chess.com strength, but past that, man, it just won't do the job. Okay, like when you're sitting in a 90-minute game, you gotta think through a morass of variations efficiently. Okay, let's end this video there. Thanks, guys.